and going into detail about the variable nature of challenge rating and how it flows and changes based on circumstance. So you can see on this map that I've created, this is a interesting encounter where a typical party of fighter, cleric, rogue and wizard have descended into a small cave system below a temple, and they've ended up in a fight with a bunch of bandits with their ogres and minotaurs in support, plus an evil mage is there as well. So this party is a party of 4 level 8s, and there are about 18 CR worth of monsters here, which I think is probably reasonably difficult, but not unfair in my opinion. So what exactly is CR, or challenge rating? So what challenge rating is a score given to each monster or adversary in Dungeons & Dragons, which is a handy guideline as to how difficult that monster is. It ranges from 0 to 30, I think, is the highest. It gives the Dungeon Master a guide as to how difficult that monster is in an encounter, and in knowing that, you can plan encounters so they've got a fair level of challenge rating in comparison to how powerful the party are. So there are a bunch of formulas and guides revolving around CR which allow you to calculate how much you should put into a fight in terms of challenge rating and how difficult it is based on that challenge rating. I'm not a very big fan of these guides. I like the concept of challenge rating. I think it is useful, but I don't think the guides and formulas are all that useful. I think the level of challenge rating is so variable, so mutable, that these guides are just not complicated enough to actually reflect that. So although I am a big fan of heuristics in games, the heuristic being a little guide statement to allow you to make decisions and relieve the mental load on calculating the right move in a situation, I think the challenge rating guide formulas are not particularly useful as a heuristic. I think the situation is more complicated than that. And when it comes to building encounters, I tend to focus more on a vibes-based approach, which is possibly not very helpful to newer dungeon masters. It is possible that using the guides is very helpful to a lot of people, and it might be a good place to start, but I think once you have dungeon mastered for a little while, you should be able to move past using the guides and just work it out based on other factors that are a little more subtle. I think from looking at the guides, I estimate that after a certain point, they will end up creating encounters that are way too easy. I think a common complaint among dungeon masters is they find it difficult to challenge their party once they get to a certain level. Once a party reaches level 5, they kind of up in power quite a bit. Once they reach level 8 as well, and around level 10 and 12, they get even more powerful. So the formulas, as they up in level, just get less and less useful. They probably work up until about level 5, and then it gets more complicated from that point onwards. In a way to illustrate the mutable nature of challenge rating, I thought I would go over some points of this encounter that might prove useful in guiding you in making combat encounters. So, this little cave network, there's a ladder that leads down from the upper levels. There's a temple above it, and the party would come around here. Once they get to this point, they'll see that there's a load of bandits and ogres, and the alarm will be raised, and combat will ensue. So these bandits here, these are all melee bandits. I know the bandit stat line has both crossbow and a melee weapon. I tend to separate monsters out so that they have either, to make them a bit more specialised. I think it's more interesting that way. So these are all melee bandits that they've got a club instead of a scimitar, so a bit of variation, and they've got a big old ogre with his club there as well. So these are all just straightforward melee guys, and they are all within range of the party. These guys move about 30 feet, ogres move 40 feet, so chances are they're going to engage them on a level playing field. The fighter's going to get in, the cleric's going to get in, the rogue's going to get in all on the first turn, and everyone can see each other, and that's all normal. So you've also got around the corner here, you've got some bandits and a minotaur that are asleep. They are laid down just having a nap. Obviously those are the night guards or something, and they are left to sleep it off. So these guys, although being quite close, they are prone and asleep, so they might not be involved in the combat until they have perceived that something is going on. If the fight isn't particularly loud, they might not pass a perception check or compare their passive perception to how loud the fight is going to be, so they might not get involved straight away. And even once they do wake up, they've got to get up from prone, so it's going to take a little bit of movement to even get into where the melee is happening. So these guys, you could say that they are slightly lower in CR. A Minotaur is CR 3, so a reasonable threat, and the bandits, they are like CR 1/8, not a very powerful threat, but because they are not going to get involved straight away, they're slightly lowered in value. These bandits over here are a ranged variant that's got the light crossbow a bandit usually has, and these guys are all in range of their crossbows. They're in a good position. They can array themselves all along the line of this deep chasm, so they're going to be able to shoot at the party without being affected too much because they're out of the way. So you could say that these CR 1/8 monsters are slightly increased in challenge rating because they are in a good position. But another wrinkle in this is if you consider the range of a light crossbow, it's 80 feet short range, 320 feet long range. So if you start measuring here, some of these guys, once the party have moved in, some of these guys are going to be in short range, some of them are going to be in long range. I guess they can move to the edge here, and some of them, so they're likely to be in short range. These guys, 2 guys here, are definitely going to be in short range, so they're going to be shooting normally. The ones that are long range are going to be shooting at disadvantage. So although they've got the advantage of being further away, so they're less likely to get killed by the melee fighter, they are also less likely to even hit the characters because they're rolling disadvantage. So that's another possible wrinkle. And if you move further down the map, there's a couple of bandits who are way down at the bottom. So these guys are probably going to be in 320 foot range, because I think it's about 150 foot up there, but it's going to take them like 5 turns to even get within short range, so they're probably never going to do that. They're probably going to stay where they are and just shoot. And you also got a couple of ogres down here, and these guys are going to take a little while to even reach the melee fight. When they do so, they'll be a reasonable threat, being a CR2 monster, but it's going to take them a little while, so you could say that they are reduced in challenge rating for this. Another possible thing to consider is, if you see this light area, this is the line of sight of these players. There is dynamic lighting features on Roll20 that allow you to see the line of sight of characters. So all of the monsters and adversaries that are in the dark areas, these are guys that the players can't currently see. So they can't see the Minotaur down here with these sleeping bandits. They can't see all of the crossbowmen, and they are unaware of these 2 ogres here. So when they join the fight, they are going to be lacking in perfect information of exactly how hard the fight is, and that might change their choices on what they do in their first turn. If they knew how many guys there were, they might go, well, I'm going to use my best attacks on this encounter because we need to get rid of these guys. If they don't see everyone, they go, well, it's only an ogre and a few bandits, I think I'll save my high level spell slots for now. So that also increases the challenge rating of the fight by some, because these are invisible enemies to them at the moment. So another thing to consider is, nestled down here by this altar, there is an enemy mage. Now this is a CR6 creature, so quite a reasonable threat. The mage has access to high level spells up to 5th level, and it is able to cast quite a few of those over the course of the battle. It's got a lot of spell slots, and they've got reasonable spell saves and attack modifiers. So this is quite a significant threat. The thing with the mage is they only have 40 HP, so with a level 8 fighter, level 8 rogue, it's conceivable that a mage goes down in the first turn if they can reach him, and then in which case that mage is doing nothing. The mage is like a breeze block dropped in the pond of challenge rating. They have such potential for variability, it's quite difficult to say that this is a immutable challenge rating 6 creature, because it could have 0 impact on the fight, or it could have a massive impact on the fight. So this character has access to Fireball, has access to Cone of Cold, it's got enough high level spell slots to be able to do significantly dangerous spells for about 7 rounds. It plateaus a little bit after that. We're using sort of second level spell slots and cantrips, but 7 rounds is a very long time, and if you're doing something every turn that could conceivably destroy or conceivably kill a character in that time every turn, that is a significant threat. So as you can see, it's difficult to accurately rate this thing. Now in this position, this mage is a good deal of distance away from the party. He is about 130 feet away. So Fireball's got a range of 150 feet, so good. If he goes first, drop a Fireball right there, and that's a lot of damage on the party. Only has to move 30 feet, and then they're in range of their cantrips like Firebolt, 120 feet. So this mage is in a very good position, and because the party is going to be so distracted by all these melee fighters, they're not going to be in a position where they can just focus down the mage on turn 1. It's possible that the wizard and the rogue might realise this is a significant threat and decide to use their first turn firing magic missiles and arrows at the mage, and they might go down straight away. But there's a very good chance that this doesn't happen, and then the mage is free to cast a high level spell. So this changes the dynamic of the fight quite a bit and makes it even harder. You can alter what spells a mage has if you wanted to, make it less difficult. It's like Fireball's quite a significant one, Cone of Cold is a significant one, but you could give it much weaker level 3 spells and much weaker level 5 spells in exchange for those. You could change its Firebolt to Ray of Frost. It's only got a 60-foot range, so in that case the mage isn't in a particularly great position at this point. So it is even more variable about how powerful the mage is. So I could also bring into light some elements about positioning in this fight. So where the parties start up here, they have a reasonably good defensive position. They're in a tight corridor, so it's quite easy for the fighter and the cleric to guard this opening and take the inrush of melee fighters, and they won't get surrounded so much, leaving the wizard and the rogue to do damage from a distance, or the rogue can get in and flank people and stab them. But yeah, it's quite a good defensive position, so it's possible that the party might just stay here and defend this corridor, which would be a reasonable tactical decision. Or you could get a situation where the party just like kill all these guys and then they start moving towards the bandits, or they might split up a little bit. It's different, but having this defensible position is something that could decrease the CR of a fight, because it's less likely that the melee fighters are going to get in to attack the wizard and the rogue, who are a little bit more vulnerable. If the party were sort of dumped straight in the middle of this fight, they could get surrounded quite easily and it'd be a bit more difficult. You could also have a situation where the party, they found a different ladder to come in. This might be the escape route for the mage. They might have done some good investigation on the surface and found this secret route in, and they could come in via this ladder, and then they have a position here where they could easily get to the mage within the first rounds and take him out, and then they are free to deal with the rest of the encounter as they please. They can quite easily get to the ranged bandits and take them out, and then all of the melee fighters are going to be taking their sweet time getting over the bridges and all the way over to where they are there. So that'd be an even advantageous position that would lower the CR of the fight. You could also have a situation where they came in this way as normal, but the fighter and the cleric, they defeated all of these guys, and then they started to move in to fight the bandits, and they get pulled away. And then the mage calls in his secret weapon, happens to have some giant spiders as pets, and a couple of them come in via the entrance ladder, and another one comes in behind the fighter and the cleric once they've come over here, and then these spiders come in, and I think the rogues come over here as well, and now the particularly weak wizard has to deal with some giant spiders that they didn't know about, and another one has ambushed the frontline guys to distract them while the other spiders deal with the wizard. So even though giant spiders are CR1 creatures, which is quite a low threat, they can do a lot of poison damage, and they can be a big threat to the lesser armoured wizard who doesn't have very many HP. So surprises and positioning increases the CR of a monster in that situation as well. There are other things that could change the CR of a fight. This cave is quite well lit currently. There's candelabras everywhere. There's holes in the ceiling which lead up to pits that are in the temple floor. These are all letting light in. So even though the party are humans, they can see quite well down here. But there could be a situation where all the lights are off and they were fighting monsters that all have dark vision, such as goblins and ogres. And then they would have to stick to the relatively low range light of a wizard's light spell, and that would mean they wouldn't be able to see long range archers in the distance, say goblins with short bows. They wouldn't be able to see the mage off in the distance if it was a goblin mage, and that would make things even more difficult and increase the CR. You could have ambient effects in the fight, such as a wind effect. Say if there was some ghostly wind that was blowing everyone in a random direction, seeing as there's a pit in the middle of the floor, this very large chasm, the wind was blowing them towards the chasm every turn. If they didn't pass a strength save, then that would be a potentially fatal obstacle. You could have an effect that caused wild magic to spring up every time a spell user used one of their spells, causing random effects. That would increase the challenge rating. So as you can see, like even in just this one simple map, there is a lot of variation in the challenge rating of a fight. There's a lot of things that could trivialize the fight, such as coming in via the secret passage, and there's a lot of things that increase the CR of the fight. The challenge rating of monsters also changes based on the makeup of the party you're DMing for. So this is a very typical party makeup of fighter, cleric, rogue, and wizard. So wizard's one of those characters that has a very high ceiling for how much effect they can have on a combat. The characters like fighter and rogue, they're limited to their basic attacks, so you can see quite easily how much they're actually going to do each turn. They'll do a reasonable amount of damage, they'll kill a reasonable amount of characters, but it's quite a flat curve. There isn't much variation there. But with the wizard, as they can cast things like fireball, which have a very large area of effect, they can have a lot of effect on a combat. These groups of bandits here, they are all pretty much in big globs that can be taken out by one fireball. So they can fireball the bandits with crossbows, they can fireball a lot of these melee bandits in one go. So if you're DMing for a party that's got wizards in it, you have to take this into account, that these big globs of monsters can disappear in one go. In fact, the spacing of monsters is also something that changes their challenge rating. If these bandits were all perfectly spaced out, so they weren't in a big glob, say so moved into the edges of this cavern, moved them along the bridge in a scattered spacing, then the wizard wouldn't have the opportunity to kill quite so many of them. But because they're all in globs, a lot of these are going to disappear in one go. You've got monsters I mentioned before are further away and less likely to be in the fight straight away, such as the sleeping ones and the ogres down here. They make the fight easier, but also harder from being further away. So if all these four sleeping bandits were in the group of melee bandits here, and both these ogres were up here as well, then you could say, well, they're going to get more attacks if they get the initiative. But if the wizard goes first, then they're going to get an extremely effective fireball, take out all the bandits, and also do a lot of damage to all three of the ogres. But because they're spaced out, they're not going to be able to kill all of them in one go. These ogres are still going to be quite fresh when they get there. So it's sort of a plus and a minus to CR, which makes it even more complicated. I like to put these valves in combat so that combat can be spaced out a bit more, so it isn't all just one big flurry on rounds 1 and 2. There's a little bit of meat left over for rounds 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and it sort of goes on. You don't want all of your fights to go on forever, but it is nice to be able to actually have something with a little bit of meat on it, so you've got at least some tactical decisions to make and something for everyone to do. You very easily can get encounters where the wizard blows up everybody and the other three characters have virtually nothing to do other than mop up the stragglers, and it's not the most interesting to do that every single time. So yeah, if the wizard fireballs this group, it's going to wake up those. So there's going to be something that's going to come at them next turn. The ogres come up the bridge next turn. So if this wizard was just another fighter or monk or something, I probably wouldn't have quite as many little guys around, because it would take a long time to mop all these up with turns of 2 attacks and move. But if you've got a wizard, it's something to take into account. So yes, the CR of a fight is also affected by the makeup of the party and their strengths and weaknesses. So that is all I wanted to talk about today. I hope this is food for thought. And if you've got anything that you think I might have missed out, or if there's any disagreements about the usefulness of the CR calculators, then please put a comment below. And if you could like and subscribe, that would be very useful for me. Very much appreciated. But for now, goodbye.